against the military, and it was thrown out by an activist judge. So our system is very corrupt and getting worse, not better. So I don't know how to deal with that, but we were talking about that yesterday on the Kitchen Table Talk, so it was pretty fun. And I've got a bunch of emails from people who are saying, we'd really like to join. And the way you join the Kitchen Table Talks is go to canadapoly.com, add your email to the list, and I'll email you the link, and you just show up on Sundays at 1 o'clock, and we sit around and chat and put our 2 cents in, and it's pretty fun. Anyway, moving on. Jordan Peterson and Robert Kennedy Jr. are talking about the climate hoax, and that's good because there's more people talking about that, which is good, right? So they talk about how fear is used to drive lockdowns and behavior changes similar to how it was used during COVID. And so that's interesting. At least there's some movement on that. Trump is removing trans people from the military, which is good because they are a distraction at best. So, and worse, much worse at worst, right? What does a weak dollar mean for our prices? It means, how do you like that GST up there, or GST rebate? Things are looking bad, and people who are getting $150,000 a year in salary are really looking forward to that $250 rebate. Weird, right? Weird. So it seems like our financial and fiscal policies are not actually doing that well. And maybe that's because we have a reporter who's in the role of the finance minister. I'm just saying, could be one of the reasons. I'm just off the top of my head, who knows. Anti-NATO demonstration. The other day, the protest in Montreal was anti-Semitic. It was a pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine, and the whole thing was pretty clear what it was about-ish. And now it's being rebranded in the press to anti-NATO demonstration. So that's interesting to me, and I'll show you that. And yesterday, Ezra Levent was at the pro-Palestine protest, and he wanted to ask questions. This was in Toronto, and when he asked questions, he was told by police that he couldn't do that, and he was arrested and then released without charge, which is very interesting. Can police do that? Can they arrest you and then release you without charge? How often can they arrest you and release you without charge? How many times can they do that before it's harassment, right? And it seems very, very odd, the relationship the Toronto police have with the pro-Palestinian protesters, sometimes showing up with coffee. And just before Ezra Levent's arrest, he was one of the top investigators, or one of the police on scene who was coordinating things, was seen chumming it up with one of the organizers of the Hamas thing. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it first. Ezra Levent and his arrest. Joe Warmington says, did he tell him to arrest Ezra? Who is he? I've never heard a Hamas supporter given the same ultimatum Ezra Levent was given. I also wonder if Ezra's tweets about Justin Trudeau and Taylor Swift's concert played a role in this. Mark is talking about, prior to the arrest of Ezra Levent, counter-protester leader Ahmed Jarar, Hamadad, sorry, I'm not trying to mess it up, but I am messing it up. And Staff Sergeant Jeffrey McDuff shared a laugh, Bathurst and Shepherd, Toronto, November 24th, 2024. So these guys are, chumming it up, and they're laughing away, and somebody's telling a good joke, I guess. Maybe the joke's on Ezra, right? And so what happens is Ezra's asking questions, and this guy, different guy than in the picture, is telling Ezra, you're going to be arrested if you don't do what I say. So Rebels reporting this. Cop says, again, here's where I want you to stand. Ezra says, I know where you want me to stand, but you're not the law. The cop says, I am the law. And is this a Judge Dredd movie? And then Ezra responds, no, sir, you're a representative of the law. You're a servant of the law. Paraphrased. Here is the exchange.
Resistance. No, I'm trying to keep the peace. No, you're not. If you try to keep the police,
if anybody wants to
crack down on the thugs.
If you want to
do their bidding,
just stand over here, okay?
I don't have to. Canada is my free state, sir.
Sir, I understand that, okay?
But you're violating my
presence
charter
in that
rights.
group is inciting the potential for violence.
I haven't incited anything. They have.
Your presence alone.
And you have obeyed them.
So, again, here's where I want you to stand, okay?
I know you want me to stand here, but you're not the law.
Well, I am the law.
No, you're not the law, sir.
So,
you're a servant of the law.
You
are not the law.
So now if you want to interview anybody, they know they can come and talk to you.
I'm not interested in interviewing them.
All right, well,
I want to show
you can videotape from here as well.
Crime that you are protecting. What a coward you are, sir. Run away, you little coward. What a coward. Holy Christ. Resistance.
So there's one exchange, and then here's another exchange. They're continuing. It's 2 minutes. I don't know if I'll play the whole thing. The beginning minute, I think this picks up up where the last one left off.
I allowed you to take that video.
Let's get
I
that
allowed
on
you to
there.
take that
Yeah.
video.
I'm not
So you're
crossing the
refusing
road.
to leave?
I'm refusing to leave.
Why?
Because I'm a Jew, I'm a citizen, and I'm your boss. And I don't leave because you say Jews aren't
Well, you know
allowed
what?
on the street.
In the interest of keeping peace here and public safety, you're under arrest for breach of the peace. Take a minute.
Good. Take this. I'm being arrested because I'm standing on the sidewalk in my city. I'm a Jew who's
I don't know about the Jew part. Like the Jew thing is being inserted by Ezra, and I don't know that has anything to do with it. The thing that I question is, can the police do what they're saying here? At the end of this, he leaves him here and says, listen, you can stand here, and if anybody wants to come and be interviewed by you, they can come and talk to you. And Ezra's saying, my charter rights say that I'm allowed to go anywhere in Canada, and I want to go over there, and you telling me that I can't go over there is against my charter rights. Are the police allowed to detain people to prevent incitement of violence or anything to that effect? Is somebody's just being somebody, like if you're Alex Jones or if you're Ezra Levent or somebody like that, somebody well known, right? Taylor Swift. Could the police say, listen, Taylor Swift, people really know who you are, and if you go over there, you can't, people might get violent, right? Let's just pretend, right? Is that a legitimate reason to not allow that to happen? Is that a legitimate reason to detain somebody who, if they go somewhere where they should be allowed to go in Canada, the people there will become violent? And is that their fault for going there, or is it the people who become violent's fault, right? And the police are saying, well, it's easier to detain this one person than it is to arrest all those other people. But then you're just surrendering your society over to people who refuse to abide by society's rules, and then punishing the innocent people, regardless of whether they're a Jew or not, for being somebody who's well known, being somebody who will ask uncomfortable questions, being somebody who will hold people accountable for, like, hey, why are you breaking windows, right? Like, this has nothing to do with being a Jew, I don't think. Like, I think it even cheapens it. I mean, sure, the pro-Palestinian Hamas guys are anti-Israel, anti-Jewish. But again, like, there's a history there that if you don't know it, you should look into it, and the history doesn't begin on October 7th. So like, there's way more to that whole thing. But the question for me is, how does it apply to Canada? How does it apply to me as a citizen? How does it apply to the broader citizenry and the broader culture that we're cultivating in Canada when somebody who's well known, say me, say I'm like Crowder or something like that, or say it's Crowder. Let's say it's Crowder and he's got changed my mind. What's his name was a pedophile or something like that, right? Steve's got that. Is that inciting violence? More violence than the pro-Hamas guys are inciting? Say Crowder's sitting there with the, change my mind sign. Would they be allowed to let him leave? Is that not free expression? Right? Like, so I don't know. It seems to me that we're sliding down a slippery slope of, and maybe some would argue that Crowder's being overtly, it's like drawing a picture of Muhammad, right? And then walking around with that. And apparently they got really mad at Charlie Hebdo for that. So like, would that be inciting violence? Like, if you did that, is that in the criminal code in Canada? You can't draw a picture of Muhammad? All of these things I have questions about. Nothing to do with being Jew. Has everything to do with free expression. What results from that free expression? If that free expression is protected in the face of that violence of those people, if their violence is protected, is their violence expression now too? Are they allowed to become violent if you incite that violence by doing something they really don't like with your free expression? These are the questions that come to my mind, and it's like these people trying to make it about something else, I think. Right? It's just kind of weird. And Ezra's trying to make it about something else, trying to talk about being a Jew and all the rest. And like, maybe that comes into it a little bit, right? But like, at the same time, the broader Canadian public should know, if you have a right to free expression, where's the line? If you have, is it violence? If somebody had an effigy of Jesus Christ or something that was very offensive to Canadians, are we allowed to now get violent? Would they arrest the people who were making those offensive displays? I don't think so. Right? Like, it doesn't seem like that. Here's Sheila Gunn Reid. She says Trudeau's Canada, and they've got the Palestinian flags, and the Palestinian guys are marching with Ezra Levent as he's being perp walked out of the area. So, and like, it seems like you can have a situation where reporters, who are Jewish or not, go into a situation of protesters, Palestinian or not, to interview people, and you're able to get that done. And it seems like the police made a mountain out of a molehill in order to arrest Ezra Levant. And so that's something to note as well, right? Ryan O'Connor says a tale of two policing standards. One, thugs dressed as Yahya Sinwar, the deceased head of Hamas, a banned terrorist group, who is harassing locals in a Jewish neighborhood, is left unmolested. So is that a hate crime, right? Like they're Palestinians going into a Jewish neighborhood and celebrating a Palestinian hero or martyr or whatever they're called. And like, that's an offensive effigy. That's an offensive image. That's okay. That's protected speech, but not the other way around. Weird, right? Like we should know where's the line and why can't we cross it and how come they can, right? Two, Jewish journalist who wishes to report on the thug is arrested for breaching the peace. Is that what he was arrested for? Is that what you saw in the video? Like he seemed to be targeting the police and seemed to be wanting to make it about him being a Jew. And it seemed like there's more to that story too, right? Like it just seems like we're hearing a very, very narrow part of this. Tamara Litch says Leo Wong is responding to the image of Ezra being arrested, and he says this is a picture that tells you everything you need to know. It's obvious that the country is turning into a police state. Well, you've been paying attention, man. Where your mask protects me and my mask protects you. Like, give me a break. Anyway, Tamara Litch says turning into is a foregone conclusion. Your bank accounts can be frozen without due process or a court order by a judge. Your business and vehicle insurance can be nullified by the stroke of Chrystia Freeland's pen or Doug Ford's. Your internet is censored, so you can only see the news your government thinks you should see, not you, X. Yeah, X too. And further, right? So Tamara Litch says, yes, there are concerning serious issues with our censorship regime in Canada. Here is Mark Towie. He's pointing out some issues with the Ezra coverage as well. And again, I don't know where exactly I sit on this. I think that there's value in what Ezra is doing there, but I think that the positioning of like putting the Jew stuff out first, I think it undermines the position, but maybe I'm biased. Okay. Mark Towie says, 1, spot a protest. He says, this is not journalism. 1, spot a protest. 2, send reporters to inflame the crowd. He was inflaming the police. 3, refuse police requests to stop. 4, get arrested. So the police didn't ask him to stop. I think they asked him to move, and he refused to move because he was citing charter rights and his Jewishness. 4, get arrested. 5, launch crowdfunding funding campaign to pay for legal expenses. 6, get released without charge. 7, pocket the money and build a mailing list of gullible fools. And so I asked him if he was covering it, but it's interesting, the whole situation. Sure, there could be elements of this, and I mean the ambulance chasing Rebel does is kind of interesting to me. But they seem to provide good coverage, right? And they send people to places that are far-reaching, and I haven't been. So it's a mixed bag, right? And I don't wish them ill necessarily, but I think that it's really eyebrow-raising when there's all of these conflict of interest. There's stuff that happened with the Coots guys that I'm like, that's weird. Then they went on a cruise. That's weird, right? Like, it's weird. It's weird. There's weird things that happen, but I mean, there are more broadly weird things that happen, right? Like our entire government locking down the country for years for the flu and then injecting everybody with COVID vaccines, mRNA vaccines, and then nobody being able to be held accountable for that. And in fact, being called far right if you want to talk about what the heck happened there, right? Like weird things happen, right? And so you got to kind of look at things and go, I guess we're moving on from that now too. Ryan O'Connor says, how can someone who openly supports Hamas, a listed terrorist entity banned under the Anti-Terrorism Act, be employed with the federal government? Great question, except that the right is now engaging in what the left was engaging in that they want to get people canceled, right? Like, let's get them canceled ASAP. Leviathan is highlighting the woman arrested in Ottawa today is the head of PYM Ottawa, Palestinian Youth Movement, Sarah W.M. It hasn't been a good week for the Hamas activists in Ottawa. So how it started, how it's going, she's arrested. And Casey says Sarah is a leader in Ottawa's pro-Hamas movement. She also happens to work for the federal government at Immigration Canada. The department responsible for immigration. So Yowza, right? That's interesting. Pro-Hamas people working in important immigration roles. Ryan Garrettson says, all the evidence you need that our media is trying to change the narrative of what took place in Montreal last night. This is coordinated. The media is garbage. So Globe and Mail says, Jolie Blair condemn anti-NATO protest in Montreal that saw fires and smashed windows. The Gazette says cars burned, windows smashed. And a pro-Palestinian anti-NATO demonstration in Montreal. 3 arrested as Montreal anti-NATO demonstration turns violent, right? So they're protecting their assets to a degree. It's very interesting to watch this coordinated speech roll out. And while that whole thing was happening in Montreal, Justin Trudeau was dancing like a buffoon. Look in the background here and you'll see him like really full-blown into this whole thing. And that's cringy. Here we go. You have to watch it a couple of times, but Jeepers Creepers, it's cringy. Here is Rothmus, and we're talking now about the invasion ongoing of the West, and this is about the United States, and I'm concerned that it's worse in Canada. Much worse in Canada. Here's Rothmus, and he says, I'd like a wake-up call. This is a meme. I like memes. And the wake-up call is military-aged males that entered the United States illegally since Biden took office now outnumber the military 6-1. Yikes. Like, that's not good, right? That's not so good. Kirk says things are getting out of control. Well, 9 years of Justin Trudeau will do that. In 2015, Canada had 16,058 asylum claims. So far to September of this year, CBSA and the IRCC have processed 132,525 asylum claims. As of October of this year, just in 2024, there are 260,142 refugee claims. We now have what used to be years worth of refugees and asylum claims, and it's costing Canada billions, and it will take years to process. If Canada can get planes to bring people to Canada, then Canada can get planes to send people out of Canada, and we need to do that ASAP. As a start, everyone that came here on a student and temporary foreign worker visa should be automatically denied and immediately sent out of Canada. We also need a hard cap on the numbers and we will accept per year. Once we are done helping Canadians and seniors living in tents in our streets, we can revisit. Yeah, so you've got the 2015 to 2024 and 2015 asylum claims. What's the red is, or the orange is 2024 numbers. I don't know why. Oh, to September 2024. I understand now. And then to October 2024. Wow, that's wild. There was 100,000, 150,000 claimants added in like September, October. Wow, that's a lot. And in 2015, there was only 16,000. And even then, 16,000 seemed too damn high. What's the cost of all this? Well, here is Marty up north highlighting RPAN K's questioning. But Gad Sad says, is this right? Is it fair to Canadian taxpayers? Is this moral? Is it just? Does a government have the right to coerce you to give up more than 50% of your earnings to others because they've decided that it is their right to redistribute your money to non-citizens? Are there any red lines that a government cannot cross when taking your money? The system is so broken, it's so parasitic. It's the biggest and most ferocious crime syndicate, but it's couched with the language of just compassion and empathetic fairness. I work very hard so that the government takes all of the fruits of my labor and redistributes $82,000 per year to thousands of asylum seekers, from whom many of us fled and who now wish to kill us in our adopted homes. Seems like a good deal. So here's the MP, Conservative MP Arpan Khanna, talking about this, and it's interesting. Here we go.
Does it last this high? Is this a first time you're seeing this in our country?
The highest volume that the IRB has had.
By having 200,000 new refugee referrals coming to the department, the wait time has gone up from 14 months to process a file to now 44 months. That's the highest it's ever been. And why does that matter? It matters because now it gives an applicant, which we're seeing a lot of fake asylum claims from, stay in the country for an additional 44 months with status. They're allowed to get a job, they're allowed to get health care, they're allowed to stay in our country. Out of the 200,000 new referrals, 70% are just within this year. So all the changes Mark Miller has made has actually led to this crisis. And we spoke about this in our previous video as well. An average refugee cost taxpayers $82,000 per refugee per year. This is just another example of chaos that this government has caused in the program. In the last video we made, I showed you how Mark Miller has no idea of what's happening in his own department.
That volume is disconcerting. It's really a system that has gotten out of control, and it's a conversation that we need to have.
I asked his department reps the same questions, basic questions that you could get Google answers for, but they had no idea. Watch this clip.
Do we know what the number of approvals were last year for student visas?
We can also table those figures with the committee.
Do we know how many came through the student direct stream versus the regular channel?
Happy to provide that data to the committee.
Do you know what the average processing time was for the student direct stream?
I can provide that data separately to the committee.
Do you know how much time it took to process the security component of those SDS programs for those applicants?
I don't have that information with me, but we can provide that information to the committee.
They had no idea. Justin Trudeau and his Liberal ministers, Mark Miller and Sean Fraser, have destroyed our immigration system.
Yes, but they did it on purpose, it seems. Here is Radio Genoa. It says, it's in most important Dutch cities, immigrants represent the absolute majority. Scary data. The most shocking thing is that we're paying for our self-destruction with our taxes. EU socialist politicians are our real enemies. And so she's talking about the same thing that's happening in Canada. It rhymes. It's not exactly the same, but you can see that it's part of the same plan. Here's just a little bit of this.
Amsterdam currently consists of 56% migrants. The Hague, 58% migrants. Rotterdam, almost 60% migrants. And of course, most of these immigrants come from non-Christian, non-Western, African and Middle Eastern countries. Conclusion, the Dutch population is already outnumbered in the majority of our cities. But let's look onwards. London, 54% migrants. Again, conclusion, native population outnumbered. Brussels, color me shocked, 70% migrants. Conclusion, native population majorly outnumbered. And other Europeans will of course follow suit soon if they haven't already. So I'm going to draw the forbidden conclusion here. The Great Replacement theory is no longer a theory, it's reality. And what's interesting about replacement is that the establishment will either deny its existence, or when they admit to it, they say that it's a good thing that the native European population is soon no longer a majority on its own continent. Dutch national disgrace and dubbed climate pope Frans Timmermans already stated in 2015 that diversity is humanity's destiny.
No, diversity is a weapon used against the West to destroy it, I think. Globe and Mail is reporting Ontario investigating a recruiter in Alberta who helped supply low-wage foreign workers to Canadian Tire stores. Huh. I've noticed, actually, I went to the grocery store the other day and it was news enough that I mentioned it to my family during dinner because I was like, I noticed that all of this is in a part of Guelph that is generally not usually staffed with white people because it has a lot of migrants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Willow Road. And so on Willow, I was at a grocery store and it was white people working, like white kids working. And I was like, when did you guys start working here? I go to that grocery store once a week because it's close to places that I have to go during that time. And so I go there and I've been watching and like, it's one of those things. It's like, I noticed the change, the increase of, I noticed the change of demographic, and now I'm noticing the change of demographic back. And that's weird because it's weird. So like maybe there's these scams happening more than we know. Maybe there are recruiters and they have connections to big conglomerates like Canadian Tire and Walmart and other places like that. Super interesting, super duper interesting. But who knows? Who knows? Marty up north. Let's do our grab bag of governance. And Marty up north is talking about Edmonton's police chief resigns on the same day as Randy Balsanoe. Is it just a coincidence? Right? Michael Cooper says Edmonton police are investigating Randy Balsanoe's companies for fraud. And so now I guess they're not, because the police chief has resigned. Maybe the investigation goes on, right? Who knows? Very interesting with that. We'll see where this scandal leads. It's already led to the Liberals. I mean, the Liberals are doing poorly if you believe the polls, but it's just one more scandal that is plaguing these people. And who knows if they're going to actually get rid of him before we actually just go into another election and he loses his seat and goes away because he's irrelevant, right? I don't know. I think it's probably going to happen like that. National Post is reporting the Bloc launches a full court press in the Senate, or on the Senate, to save its supply management bill. So I think that we should probably abolish supply management and allow farmers to sell raw milk, sell it to local populations, make deals with people. And if you own a cow, you should be able to milk it. You should not need quota. That's my opinion. But then, see, if you have quota, you say to yourself, well, I've got all this valuable quota and I don't want to lose the value in it. In New Zealand, they went from supply management to not supply management, and they did it over, I think it's 10 years, but maybe it was 5 years. But like the most impactful things happened in the first 3 to 5 years. And then after that, it was just payouts for quota, basically. Like it was an open market after 5 years, but there was compensation for the quota costs for the people who owned a lot of quota and such. And I mean, the details are a bit more detail-y than that, but fundamentally, the point that I'm trying to make is that they were able to transition from a quoted system to an open system and remove the supply management successfully in New Zealand and drop the price of dairy and milk and all the rest of it. And so like, we could do that, but we don't because of financial incentives, right? And so that's kind of sucks. We lose on that situation, right? And like, we should be able to have better things than the reason we can't is financial incentives, negative financial incentives that have been set up by people who are trying to maintain their preferential treatment. And like, I can't blame them. If you had millions of dollars in quota, you'd be like, this quota system is real good for everybody, right? But like, everybody who doesn't have quota doesn't see it like that. Okay, Holly Doan says formal protest launched against Conservative MP I can't say his name, Corey Tochor, after he told Commons that the government was pissing away taxpayers' money. He's right, though, right? So they're going to do a full protest. People are saying that they're utilizing this as an excuse to engage in lawfare, and it's a distraction, and they're going to focus on this while ignoring all the other stuff that's important and going on. Here is Bradshaw, and she's referring to this National Post article that was reported yesterday. A federal court judge has tossed a lawsuit filed by 330 current and former Canadian Armed Forces members claiming COVID mandates violated their charter rights. And the judge says, well, there's nothing to see here. There's no merit to this case. Bye-bye. See you later, right? She tossed it out. And Bradshaw makes this connection. Which Liberal judge tossed the case out? I think the judges should be tossed. And Arif Varini said on the 12th of November, with the 3 announcements today, I've now appointed 172 judges in my term as minister. 800 judges have been appointed by our government since 2015, improving the accessibility and efficiency and fairness of our justice system. I'll be sure to keep this historic pace going. So he's stacking the courts with Liberal appointees. And that's like terrible, because they're terrible and they don't believe in justice or see justice the way you and I see justice. Valor Legal says 20 years of service, experience, and skills gone in 2 weeks. His family left homeless. Is this the Canadian Armed Forces that you want to join? So here is Major Corporal Kennedy, and he says, after dedicating 20 years of my life to the Canadian Armed Forces as a firefighter, I was given a release category reserved for criminals, drug addicts, and rapists, all because of a single decision I made about what went into my own body. This decision not only devastated my life, but also shattered my family's, destroying my identity and crushing my soul. As a firefighter at the rank of Master Corporal, I was trained to operate at a level of warrant officer. I had the responsibility and the skills set to lead any emergency response, acting as the incident commander in a wide range of crises. But when I refused to follow an illegal order, I was told I was unfit to serve. In less than a month, I lost my career and the only home my young daughters had ever known. We were evicted from the RHUs and left homeless. Forced to find work halfway across the province. My wife and daughters had to live in an old travel trailer for 9 months. I spent 2 decades putting my life on the line to help others, only to be cast aside and labeled unfit to serve. So that's what our government is doing to our veterans and people who don't deserve that kind of treatment. And like, that's pretty terrible, right? It's pretty brutal. Here's Larry Brock, and this is a continuation, but this is more money focused. And he says, Justin Trudeau continues to hide green slush fund documents from Canadians. Liberal insiders cashed in on $400 million of taxpayer funds. We asked for the unredacted documents, and the Liberals continue to ignore the will of the House. What is Justin Trudeau afraid of? So Larry Brock is holding Justin Trudeau to account. Here's Pierre Poilievre, and he says, a weak dollar means high food and fuel prices because both are based on international commodity prices. When the Canadian dollar drops, we need more of them to buy the same gas, corn, wheat, and etc. By attacking our key industries like energy, mining, forestry, the NDP Liberal government drives up food inflation. We need to unleash our economy, produce more energy and resources to boost our dollar's buying power so Canadians can afford to eat. So yeah, he makes a good point, right? So able to communicate effectively is Pierre Poilievre so far. Toronto Sun is putting out memes. I like memes. And the Toronto Sun says Tim's cartoon on November 25th, and it's got Justin Trudeau in a sleigh, and there's TV cameras all around, and it says Liberal Studios shameless vote buying ploy, or shameless vote ploy, take one. And Chrystia Freeland's in the back looking sour as usual, and it's in the sleigh, the bag says GST break. And it says a $250 rebate, a temporary tax break on essentials and stocking stuffers. And this is bad because Christmas itself is a stimulus. Christmas itself demands people spend money, I guess. And so this time of year is when people are spending a lot of money. And so it's interesting that they need to add stimulus during this time of year already. And you could believe them when they say, oh, they're just trying to help Canadians. But if they were just trying to help Canadians, people would be better served from them removing the carbon tax than pushing this GST break. And they know it, and everybody knows it. And so it's a shameless vote buying ploy, and it's shameless. And they're just going to try it, and it's not going to work. Why isn't it going to work? Well, Andrew Coyne hates it. And if they've lost Andrew Coyne and Rosemary Barton, well, they're sure not going to convince me, right? Like, here's Rosemary and Andrew Coyne talking about the GST break. Here we go.
I've been wondering all day what you would make of this move, so I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. What do you make of both the policy and the politics?
It's embarrassing. You know, if you're going to go out with some dignity and some integrity rather than flinging billions of dollars at the public in hopes that they'll forget why they hate you. This is such bad policy on so many levels. We're going to borrow $6 billion to throw ourselves a party so that people can move purchases forward and backwards so they can take advantage of this. The biggest recipients, for example, if you dine out at restaurants, the more expensive the meal, the bigger the break you'll get. Well, who is that going to benefit? Is that going to benefit the poorest among us? Is that going to benefit the richest among us? We're going to give a tax break to people on alcohol sales. That's great public policy. We're going to give a tax break on snack food at a time of rampaging obesity. That's great public policy. It's going to needlessly clutter up an already complicated sales tax regime. We've got about 25 different sales tax regimes in this country, depending on whether it's federally taxed or provincially taxed or not federally taxed or not provincially taxed, and every possible combination of the two. Yeah. And now we're going to add a bunch of completely arbitrary categories of tax breaks again on top of this, and it's all going to last for 2 months. Why? Well, to tee things up for the election, and also I suppose part of this is you have to pass a bill through Parliament, so the Conservatives, who are now protesting quite rightly at the government's refusal to release documents, will be put in an invidious position of, why are you blocking this bill that is going to give goodies away to Canadians? This is just so cynical and such dumb public policy, it's hard to believe.
All right.
Well, the whole thing is, I mean, like, our entire government is hard to believe at this point. Like, there's absolutely nothing that they're doing at all that helps Canada or Canadians, and yet they're doubling, tripling down, and calling anybody who calls them out and says, hold on a second, this seems crazy, far right, or white supremacist, which doesn't make any sense at all. And you have to go through mental gymnastics to understand what the heck they're even talking about. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful